We love having the conversation during this month of October about prosperity, and then we come to money, and everybody gets a little squirrely. And so we have lots of conversations about, one should not talk about money in church. And when you talk about money in church, all they ever want to do is ask for your money, and they just want your money. That's why they talk about it. No, that's why we have a pledge program. We have a pledge program because we want your money. Right? I mean, that's clear, right? Because we need to support ourselves as a community, so we have a pledge program so we can do that. So we can all say how we're going to grow this community together. You're not giving it to me and Karen. You're not even giving it to the core council. You're essentially giving it to each other so that we have this experience together. But we talk about money and we talk about prosperity because the law of giving and receiving is actually part of the law of cause and effect. And the opportunity to live an abundant life is promised to us, particularly in our Judeo-Christian heritage. And so I think, as Michael so beautifully already said, back in the Hebrew Bible and in the Old Testament, right, over and over and over again, humanity is promised wealth, abundance, and a prosperous life if we will align ourselves with the infinite power and presence. If we will walk our faith, live in accordance to the principles that we teach, abundance is the promise, is the result. In the New Testament, we have the story of the prodigal son. The prodigal son decides to take his inheritance and go out into the world because he is tired of living under his dad's roof. And he takes his inheritance, he gets half of all of the money and all of the good, and he goes out and he lives a good life till the money runs out. Next thing you know, he's flipping burgers. And then he's a barista at Starbucks. And life's not so good anymore. And he decides, the people who work at my dad's estate, they are better off than I am. So I'll go back home and I'll just work on my dad's estate. I don't need to ask for any special treatment. I'll just do my thing. And because I clearly have lost myself out here, right? Thinking about all the things that money was spent on, and maybe squandered, somehow wasted away because there wasn't any left. So he decides to go home, and what happens when he comes home? The father sees him coming, and rather than going, "What were you thinking? Why did you do that?" or any of those kinds of things, what happens? He's totally embraced. And a huge party is thrown for him, and he's given all of his symbols of all of that wealth back. He's given the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. And everything that abundance is returned to him because he returned to himself. Over and over and over again, we are promised that as we live in alignment with the truth of who we are, the truth of the spiritual reality that we live in, one infinite power and presence, one universe that we talked about last week, how abundant it is. And if we align ourselves with that, life does, as Michael said, actually begin to unfold according to our good. The problem is that in this iteration of humanity, that includes money. Whereas before it might have been sheep and cattle and camel and land and all kinds of other ways in which that is described and explored. Today, we live in a culture that requires money. And so we want to talk about this thing. And what do we call it? Cold, hard cash, don't we? And most of our terms for money actually are somewhat derisive, have a sense of it not being such a good thing. lots of words that we use that show our love-hate relationship with money. Unfortunately, so much of that love-hate relationship comes from the belief that money is the root of all evil, right? And that is steeped in our culture today. Money is the root of all evil. And for 1,500 years, when the Catholic Church was the primary religious organization in the West, then if you were really going to be spiritual, you took a vow of poverty because money is the root of all evil. Actually, the problem is, this is actually not the quote. This is not actually what it says in the New Testament. It actually says this: "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil." Some people, in their eagerness to get rich, have wandered away from the faith and caused themselves a lot of pain. That's the actual quote from 1 Timothy 6, verse 10. So it's not just that money is the root of all evil. It is the love of money. And actually the Hebrew word that's translated into love can also be translated into avarice, covetedness. It is not just the love of money, but it is the need for money in a covetous, avarice way that is the root of all kinds of evil. Why? Let's ask that question. Why is the covetousness of money the root of all kinds of evil? This is not a rhetorical question. What do you think?
It implies lack.
It implies lack. Good.
Love of the thing instead of the source.
Love of the thing instead of the source.
It's not circulated.
It's not circulated. I've got to have it, have it, have it, have it, have it. Have it. Right? It'll make me happy. Fill me up. It creates behavior to acquire. In most of the ways in which this verse is interpreted, that is the fundamental piece. That right there is the fundamental piece. That when we covet money because we think it is our source of supply and our security, it causes us to wander away from the faith, which means to behave out of alignment, out of integrity with the spiritual truths that we know, which might cause us to not care for our employees as a business because we're more busy worrying about our profit than the love that we have for our people. Do you see? Fundamentally, that is the piece. And because it's hoarded, and because it causes us to be out of an integrity with ourselves, it causes pain. And we know, ultimately, it causes ourselves the most pain, because if we're hoarding something, we're afraid of losing it, right? So we can't share it, we can't give it, we can't circulate it, we're too afraid of losing it. And we begin to not be able to look at ourselves in the mirror anymore, right? Because we are behaving in ways that are actually out of integrity with who we know we truly are. So this is the root of this particular passage. The problem is that it has, over 1,500 years, moved into the psyche that if we decide we are spiritual people, we turn our back on money. Because somehow it has this tainted idea with it, rather than recognizing that there is a relationship with money that we need to have, just as we have a relationship with every physical thing. We have to have a relationship with our bodies. When we neglect our bodies, don't care for our bodies, treat our bodies not well, what happens? We become not well, don't we? And this is a part of how we engage in the world. So our money is the same. So these are some of the fundamental myths that come out of a false understanding of what this passage really meant. And that is that money in general is the root of all evil. It's more spiritual to not be interested in money. I spent 25 years saying, well, I'm not really interested in money. And my bank account agreed. Now, I always had enough. I had enough. That was, okay. But I was not interested in money, and money was definitely not interested in me. And so I did not experience the kind of prosperity and abundance that actually is promised to us. I don't need to think about money. Spirit will handle it. Another spiritual myth that we enjoy in New Thought. We think that if we meditate, that somehow we will become prosperous. Or if we focus only on the divine love, that somehow we will be rewarded with financial prosperity. That's actually called Calvinism. Are you familiar with that? Calvinism and the seed of Protestantism is that if I am good, the way that you know that I'm in favor with God is I am financially prosperous. So if I seek favor with God, I will be prospered. What we know to be true is that we're actually using a law. That if we want to be prosperous and we want to enjoy the fruits of our spiritual labor in the world, we do actually have to pay attention to what we do, what we work with, and how we use this thing, money. Spirit will handle it in exactly the way in which we think about it. Can I say that again? Spirit, actually the law, will handle our money in exactly the way that we think about it. That is actually the instructions that we're giving. If I'm spiritual, I will be showered with money, right? Somehow that I will be rewarded with money. But we don't actually believe in punishment and reward. It actually does not work that way. It's not only that we don't believe it, we don't see that it works that way. So other myths about money. Money doesn't grow on trees. How many of us heard that when we were growing up? Money doesn't grow on trees. You have to work hard for your money. And these are not now spiritual myths, but these are cultural myths that we share. That money is somehow elusive, it's somehow something different. Like everything is spiritual. Karen said this last week. Everything is spiritual except money. Somehow money is real, like it's really real, right? And you don't understand, it doesn't really work with money. But if it's all one, if it's all the same thing happening in all sorts of ways, then we have to recognize what it actually is. And how many of have heard this? Be grateful for what you have in a pejorative sense, right? Of course we know we want to have gratitude for all that we have. But often it's told to us, be grateful for what we have and don't want more, right? Settle, accept, resign yourself. Couldn't you just be grateful for what you already have? Right? These are some of the myths, because somehow, just as it was wrong to boast or brag or say good things about ourselves, it's also somehow not okay to want things. Not okay to decide that one wants to have a prosperous or abundant life. Now, we're going to talk about where we can get caught in that as well, because remember, it's the love of money, the covetousness, and the way it causes us to behave that is the problem, not the money itself. So this is the heart of the prosperity gospel. It is the heart of the Protestant idea of wealth. Wealth is a sign of God's favor. This is a myth. Wealth is a sign that somebody has paid attention to wealth. Wealth is a sign that somebody is consciously or unconsciously deciding to create and manage wealth and to do something with it. Wealth is not something that we are favored by because somehow we're special or different or better or good. Another myth is be good and you will be rewarded with wealth, is another way that this Protestantism, this way of understanding wealth is shared. And of course, in New Thought, we have the associated thought, well, if you're not financially prosperous, what's wrong with your consciousness? You must be doing something wrong. There must be something wrong with your consciousness, right? Or you're out of favor with God. Either of things of which are true. And then I love this one. This is my favorite one. Some people are just lucky. They were lucky to be born with a silver spoon in their mouth. They were lucky to invent something. They were lucky to inherit. They were lucky to whatever it is, right? But if we ascribe everything to luck, we're living in a random universe, not a universe that is operating under the law of cause and effect, under the law of creation. And we actually believe that we live in a universe that has causal reality to it. And that as we understand that, we can participate in it. We can actually engage in it. We know lots of people and seen lots of evidence of people who have been lucky. They've won the lottery. They have, in fact, inherited large sums of money. And it is poofed away, right? Think of the prodigal son. He was very lucky to get half of his wealth at such a young age and be able to go out into the world and do whatever he wanted with it. And then he was unlucky because somehow he wasn't paying attention to that, wasn't in integrity with himself. And of course, that's the turning point of the prodigal son. He came to himself. Not he came to needing money. Not he came to remembering that his dad had money. Not he came to, well, this sucks and I need to do something, right? But he came to himself. He came to an internal understanding and an internal reality of who he truly was, which allowed that turn. So, in addition to beliefs, myths about money, we have beliefs about money. I have had my whole associated beliefs about money. My fundamental belief about money was I could not be more prosperous than my mother. I know, isn't that weird? There was a cap. There was a cap. I could be as prosperous as my mother, but not more prosperous than her. For whatever reasons, for the longest time. And I carried that belief around. There's many beliefs. Oh, and this is another one that I've had, which I am diligently working to overcome. It's funny, I never had it for CSLDallas. I always had it just for myself personally. I don't know how to manage money. I know how to manage the budget for this organization and have been doing it for 25 years. I'm really, really good at it. But thinking about stocks and thinking about all that kind of stuff was just overwhelming, and retirement, and I don't know. And this is the belief I carried around for a long time. I don't know how to manage money. It's nonsense. It's a skill. We can learn it like any other skill. Finances are hard to deal with. How many of us have that belief? Finances are hard to deal with, and dealing with my finances is overwhelming. My favorite false belief in all of this is if I don't look at my checkbook, then I'll be prosperous. The problem is your checkbook is just telling the story of the history that has brought us to this moment. And the story is there whether you look or not. Right? And so starting to just look at these things, listen to the things that we say about our financial prosperity and how we describe it and how we talk about it will actually illuminate the beliefs that we have and the myths that we have bought into. Could we just have a normal, sane relationship with money in as normal and sane as we have a relationship with food, with our bodies, with our cars, with our homes? Do you see? It's simply part of the physical universe that we get to be engaged with. And what we want to have is to really build that very healthy, sane relationship. Now, here we come to, I think Karen said it, the other false beliefs about money. Some of it is, it's hard and I don't want to look at it and it's painful and whatever. And the other side of it is, if I had more money, then I'd be happy. Or, if I had $1 million, then I'd be okay. So they have done tons of studies about it. And when people individuals earn $75,000 to $125,000, somewhere in there is the range of peak happiness. After that, there's no amount of money that people can earn that causes them to be more happy. Why? Why is that? Because it's not the money, of course. It is the life. It is the experience of life. It is the way in which we engage with our lives that truly makes us abundant and prosperous. And so it's not the money itself that makes us happy. It's what we do with it, how we live our lives, what kinds of things. So we can have tons and tons and tons of money in the bank. Then we can worry about what will happen to it. We can spend all of our time focusing on it. That's not necessarily a bad thing, focusing on it. And yet, incrementally, studies have shown that the actual experience of life itself, it's not about the money. Do you see? So we have to talk about money partly because we have to discover that it's actually not about the money. Right? Isn't that the paradox of it? But if we always avoid talking about the money, then we don't ever get to actually look at what is money, what is our relationship with it, and how are we going to deal with it? How do we allow it to be part of the truth of who we are? And finally, the last one is when I feel wealthy, then I'll be able to give. So let me also tell you, statistically, they've done all kinds of research that the wealthier a person is, unfortunately, the less percentage of their money they give away. People who live below the poverty line tend to give percentage-wise more money away than people who are very wealthy. So clearly that's a false belief and a myth. When I'm wealthy, then I'll be able to give. No, giving is part of the way in which we experience our wealth because we aren't hoarding. Do you see, we can't feel prosperous when we're hoarding because when we're not contributing and we're not giving because we think there's not that's a way of expressing there's not enough. Facts about money. So, some quick little facts about money we might want to think about when we think about money from the point of view of consciousness. The first one is our net worth tends to be equal to our self-worth. So if our net worth is small, we might want to look at where we actually feel our self-worth is. It's an interesting relationship, not necessarily one-to-one all the time, but something worth noting. Another thing that's often talked about is that the level of our debt is proportion to the level of our desire minus our self-esteem. Does that make sense to you? If I don't have self-esteem, then I desire things that will raise my self-esteem. But we know that it doesn't work that way, does it? We can't buy self-esteem, just like we can't buy happiness. And so that level of debt, the greater the debt, it means that we are potentially buying things because we think somehow it will make us happy, better, more of something, more of whoever we thought we were going to be. We might be buying things because we want other people to see how it looks. And we are, without question, constantly having to manage our spiritual understanding about prosperity and the consumer society that we live in today. We're constantly having to manage that. When I watch all these, I don't watch a lot of TV, but every once in a while I end up somewhere where there's a TV show on. Do you know nobody works? Nobody works. Unless it's actually in the office, nobody works. They all have designer apartments. They all have amazing clothes, right? And they don't work. And so we see that, and we see that in the movies and whatever it is, and then we're hit over and over and over and over again with an economy that is built on your dissatisfaction. the dissatisfaction that you feel about your own life. So we need a new car, we need different clothes, we need this, we need that. And you'll be cooler, sexier, more desirable, younger if you buy all these products. Right? And now we know better, spiritually we know better, but that is an inundating message. And we have to constantly make sure that our desire for prosperity and abundant life is not simply rampant consumerism. And this is part of our spiritual practice, right? So one of the fundamental fact about money is simply energy in a form we can see. Right? So we get paid money because we've given energy to work, and then we receive it, we can put it in our pocket. You know, it's really hard to carry sheep around. But that's, right? That's basically what it is. We used to be people who made things, grew things, did things, and we carried them around and we traded them and we bartered them. And, you know, I gave you a sheep and you gave somebody else a cow, and then that person gave me a shoe, you know, and it was all, those things are hard to carry around. So money was invented. That was the point of money, and it meant something, and it represented something. And so it's simply energy in a form we can see. So if we can deconstruct all the weirdness around money and just let it be energy in a form that we can see, do you see, we could have a happy, healthy, sane relationship with it. And when we do that, we can begin to engage in really deep truths about money. The first one is that we want money fundamentally because what we want is freedom. So it's really important as we think about becoming prosperous and having money is to really ask ourselves, what is the money for? And to decide for yourself what that is, because it's your life. My money is for traveling, for being here, doing this work, right? That's what my money is for. I don't need a lot of stuff. Actually, I keep having to not buy things when I'm traveling because I have no place to put it, right? How many of us have finally decided we don't need any more stuff? We have plenty of stuff. That's a great place to be because that's mine. Now, you might still need stuff. You might want to refurnish your house. You might need money to invest in a business or to buy art supplies or to give to your children or whatever it is. But ultimately, we want money so that we can be free in our lives to live according to the integrity of who we are. That's what we have to decide. What does that look like? And how do we create that kind of a life as opposed to all the little pieces having to do with money? So thinking about the freedom that money will give us, that becomes the mental equivalent. Do you see? It becomes the mental equivalent of the life that we want. And if it's just energy, some of it will come in money, some of it will come in gifts, some of it will come in miracles, some of it will come in unexpected ways. Do you see what I'm saying? And so the truth about money is that it's a piece of our financial freedom. And that gives us the ability to do, to save, and to give, to be part of a full, rich, meaningful life. And so this is why, again, I said earlier, we look at money so that we can see that it's actually not about the money. It's about what we do with the energy as it circulates in our own lives, in the lives of our family, in the lives of the communities and places that we're a part of. And as I said, it's not about the stuff. It's about living a meaningful and fulfilled life. If we don't have enough money just to pay the bills, it's really challenging to then be about creating and expressing the meaningful life that we're here to have and to be. So I really want to encourage you to read Dennis Merritt Jones. Can't remember the name of it, An Abundant Life, I think it's called. Dennis Merritt Jones, our book of the month, his 10 things about prosperity. It's really powerful because this is ultimately what that book is about. It's not about stuff. It's about living a meaningful life and having the freedom to live the meaningful life that is your meaningful life to live. And if we can do that without making money somehow bad and wrong, then it's just a part of that. It's just a natural, sane, happy part of the meaningful life that we're living. Prosperity is fundamentally about an abundant life. And you deserve that abundant life just as much as the lilies in the field, as the flowers and the trees and the birds. You deserve that abundant life. It is yours for the creating. So that's what we're about together this entire month, creating that prosperous and abundant life. So let us pray. So just inviting us to go within, we just take this opportunity right now to breathe. Take a deep breath with me. Let it out. There is the greatest demonstration of abundance. Air is simply life in a form that we can breathe. Blood is simply life in a form that circulates and keeps our bodies alive. Sunlight is simply life in a form that nourishes the earth. Water is simply life that allows things to grow. Money is simply life in a form that we can carry around and exchange. All of it is the one life, the one infinite reality, the one power and presence that is expressing itself through all of creation, through my life, through your life, through all life. And so as we know this morning that this is true, that we live in an abundant universe, that abundance flows in, through, and as us, let us release any false ideas we have about money. Let us release any thought that we have that something outside of ourselves makes us happy. Let us release any idea that we are unworthy or incapable of managing money, of having money, or of living a prosperous life. And so today I speak this word for each and every one of us, that we are financially free. That we are financially free to contribute the great gift that we are, that is the truth of our being. That whatever is required for that financial freedom is attracted to us, and whatever stands in the way is released. I affirm for each one of us that as we are financially free, as we are prosperous, we rob no one. We actually have more to give and to share and to grow, that others too may experience their financial freedom. And as we stand in witness to this truth for each of us, let us stand witness to this truth for every person on the planet. For truly, there is enough energy to go around. There is enough love to go around. There is enough life for every person on the planet. There is enough of what is needed for a full, rich, and meaningful life. We affirm that we live it sustainably, sanely, happily, joyfully expressing not only our own financial freedom, but sharing that good in a way that prospers life. And to this truth, we are so grateful. We let it be, and so it is.